Welcome back, everyone. This is MMBS-111, Introductory Microbiology. Today's mini lesson is going to address content from section 4.3. We will be discussing fungi and their characteristics as part of our eukaryotic microorganisms. There are 4 learning outcomes for this mini lecture. First, be able to name the 2 cell types of fungi. Second, name the 3 ways humans can acquire a fungal infection. 3, name at least one product or benefit of fungi. And 4, explain why sexual reproduction might benefit offspring. So there are approximately 50,000 species of fungi currently identified. We have macroscopic fungi and microscopic fungi. So we see mushrooms, puffballs, gill fungi in the macroscopic category, and then we also have our molds and yeasts in the microscopic fungi. And these are the fungi that we will spend our time on in this class. They can be unicellular. They can also be multicellular or colonial. So we have different types that are living together. The 2 types of fungal cells are yeasts and hyphae, and the yeasts are typically round to oval in shape, and they reproduce asexually by budding parts of the cell off to create a new cell. The hyphae are long, very thread-like cells that are found in the bodies of filamentous fungi, and these are typically our molds. Or we can also encounter pseudohyphae, which are long chains of yeast cells. Okay, and some fungal cells are considered dimorphic, and that means that they can take on either shape, either the hyphae or the yeast cell type, depending on the environment that they are currently living in. And this is an example here. You can see the hyphae, what those look like, and then the yeast, what those look like in comparison. So approximately 300 species of fungi are associated with human disease, and there are 3 general ways that humans can acquire a fungal infection. And the first is community-acquired infections. The second is environmental pathogens that are found in the general population. And then the third is hospital-associated infections that can be caused by fungal pathogens. Also, if you are immune compromised, especially those who have HIV and AIDS, many harmless fungal spores can also create opportunistic infections in those patients. Fungal cells, their cell walls also release substances that can cause allergies. Many of the allergies that we encounter are caused by fungi. They also produce toxins, so many mushrooms produce toxins that can be harmful and even cause death. Fungi also play a key role in impacting agriculture. So there are a number of fungi that are pathogenic to various plants, including corn and grain. And grain and corn is an additional problem because our domestic animals typically consume corn and grain, and many fungi that live on and consume these plants can be very harmful to our domestic animals. Aspergillus flavus is particularly lethal and can kill domestic animals that consume contaminated grain. Fungi also rot much of our food products in the United States and worldwide. About 40% of fresh produce is consumed and rotted essentially by fungi. Fungi, though, also play some very key roles in decomposition and are incredibly beneficial to us as humans, as well as ecosystems and the environment. They help form stable associations with plant roots. So many plants are able to increase their ability to absorb water and certain nutrients when fungi are present in the soil and associate with their roots. Fungi have also been engineered to produce large quantities of antibiotics, alcohol, organic acids, and vitamins. Penicillin is an example of one of those antibiotics. We also use fungi in the production of beer and wine, bread. They are key components of our food production system. Some fungi are also eaten directly or used to impart flavoring to food. Many cheeses include fungi to add additional flavor to that food. Fungi can get their nutrition in several different ways. Some fungi are heterotrophic, and this means that they have to acquire their nutrients from other sources. Basically, this is eating, so they must eat their food or consume it from someplace else. Some fungi are what we call saprobic. This can also be called saprophytic or saprotrophic. They obtain their nutrients from the decomposition of dead plants and animals. So through that, because the organism is dead, that decomposition process, we call them saprobic. They can also be parasitic. So some fungi actually grow on the bodies of plants or animals and get their nutrients that way. Although they are somewhat different from other parasites because they don't require their host to be living. Fungi typically thrive in environments that are nutritionally poor. So there aren't a lot of nutrients available in the soil, or other adverse environments like the Great Salt Lake, where the salt content is very high, or other locations where there's high sugar content. There are typically two morphology types of fungi. So most microscopic fungi grow in very loose associations, or what we would call colonies. Colonies of yeast look very much like colonies of bacteria, and you can see the top image there is of a yeast, probably Candida species. They are very soft. They have a uniform texture and appearance, typically very distinct round-like colonies. And then we have filamentous fungi, and these are generally the molds, and they have a very cottony or hairy appearance. Some are velvety. They tend to spread over the nutrient plates where they're grown, or wherever it is that they are growing. Filamentous fungi have some unique additional characteristics. So the mycelium is the woven intertwining mass of hyphae that makes up the whole body of the mold or colony. And this is what you see growing through the agar and above the agar. Then you have the septa, which are the segments or cross walls that are found inside the fungi that allow organelles and nutrients to flow between adjacent compartments or adjacent cells. So the organelles can move back and forth among the septa. We also have non-septate hyphae, which is just one very long continuous cell. And then the vegetative hyphae, which are responsible for the visible mass of growth of the mold. Fungi can reproduce in two ways. They can reproduce by outward growth of the hyphae, so the hyphae just continue to grow and extend, or they can produce spores. And spores can be dispersed into the environment through the water, through the air. They can be carried by other living things, and they will germinate and form a new organism when they find a favorable environment to then germinate. Spores can be produced either asexually or sexually. Sporangiospores are the asexual spore formation, and they are formed by successive cleavages within the sporangium. So we get cells essentially that are dividing in half, breaking into two, forming two new cells. Kinidiospores or conidia are free spores produced in the same way, but they're not enclosed in a sac. Spores can also be produced sexually, and this happens when we have a linking of genes from two parent fungi that then create different combinations of those genes from that parent. And this increases the variation within that species of fungi, which can eventually lead to some advantageous adaptations. Scientists also believe that sexual reproduction, because it does increase genetic diversity, can also help organisms resist disease and infection from pathogens. Sexual spores can vary from simply fusing the fertile hyphae together to create a larger complex between a male and female structure. So that's what you need to know about the fungi. Go through the questions, make sure that you can answer those questions, and review the learning objectives. Make sure that you're able to do those things. Remember, you can review this again, and I hope this was helpful.